Hey guys, what's going on? How you doing? I'm Kefa. I'm Sarah's husband. Yes, I am an Instagram husband or Insta hubby. But I was tricked into all of this. She promised me that she'd buy me a rabbit or a bunny. Prefer bunny. I kid. Anyway, for those who don't know, I'm actually the one who shoots and edits Sarah's pictures for her page because I'm a professional photographer by trade, and she's so lucky to have somebody taking her pictures for her page. So today I'm gonna kind of like just show you what the editing process for her pictures entail. With her pictures, everything starts from the conceptualization process where we brainstorm ideas for shoots, come up with locations, because locations is a fundamental part of the entire process, and then how I light and shoot the pictures and then edit. So all of that is part of the creative approach that enables us to give the pictures the look that they have once you see the final result. But for the sake of time, today I'm only going to focus on the editing portion of this. And it's just going to give you an overview of how everything usually happens, especially when when she's collaborating with different brands and different fashion brands and so on. So this is one of the images I'm going to work with. This is an image that we shot for Alma Boutique in Granada, Spain. And it's a really, really cute boutique. They have a lot of great styles. And her makeup was done by Ruth Marquez, who's a professional makeup artist in Granada as well. She's the manager of the MAC store in Granada. I think it's the only MAC store there. And she did her makeup a great, great job. So this is a picture I've chosen for this demonstration. As you can see, I feel as if in this picture she looks like one of those Matrix girls with the coat and everything, if you've seen the Matrix movies. So hopefully she doesn't kung fu me or something. Won't be happy with that. But anyway, getting back to the process. So when I open an image like this, you can see that it's a really, really nice shot. Part of making an image great is ensuring that you're capturing a great shot with your camera settings and then bringing it into Photoshop or whatever editing application you use and just making it better. You can't solve everything in Photoshop, so always focus on taking better pictures first and then using Photoshop or whatever editing tool to enhance and make it better. So this is a really, really nice shot. Her smile looks great, eh, mi amor? So when I open this picture in Photoshop, the first thing I do is I use a technique called frequency separation, which is a great skin editing technique that allows you to edit the skin without ruining the details or the texture. Skin has texture, and simply throwing on blur and leaving it at that isn't a good editing technique. You need to maintain skin texture. And if you don't know anything about frequency separation, just Google it or YouTube it. It's a great technique because it allows you to edit the texture of the skin and the color of the skin on two completely separate layers. And that way you have a really, really nice image that maintains the details of skin. So here, with frequency separation, I have my blur layer, I have my skin layer, and I have my texture layer. So I'm pretty much, as I said, I'm working on the texture of the skin and the color of the skin on two completely separate layers so that it's non-destructive. So when you look at this, if I turn this entire layer off, you can see with frequency separation, this skin color section is just a great way for me to kind of like remove bad shadows that are caused by lighting issues. Like for example, if you're photographing on a very overcast day, you're going to have some kind of like grain out on the skin, which can be really bad. And so I can use this skin color technique to fix that. And to do that, it's really, really simple. I will take my brush and I will set the opacity on the brush. And remember, I'm using Photoshop CC. I'll set the opacity at 100, flow to 2, and I'm basically going to fill out a shadowy area, like let's say this part here, for example. I'll sample, using the sample tool, sample a color next to my shadowy area, and then just use it to kind of like I just brush that around the shadowy area, and as you can see, it kind of like blends in really nicely. Now remember, I'm doing this really quickly. Ordinarily I would spend a lot of time doing this so I'm as precise as possible. So if another area like this, especially around the area, is very shadowy, I'll sample again and just kind of like brush and clean out that area until the skin blends really well and it's perfectly even. And it's safe because you don't damage the skin, you're not getting rid of skin texture. When it's all said and done, and I've removed all bad shadows caused by lighting issues, the image comes from this and like that. So it's almost like you've done nothing, but you've actually done something. It's very subtle. Once I've completed the skin retouching technique, I will do the dodge and burn. And dodge and burn is an awesome technique for adding depth to your images. Basically, the process of dodging and burning is you're darkening dark areas, like let's say these dark areas, and you're brightening the brighter areas. So anywhere that has a highlight, you're brightening those areas. And what that does is just make your image stand out or pop out, as we use in photography lingo. So once again, there's so many different ways to dodge and burn. I use a simple technique that involves just creating a new layer with a gray layer, and I use a brush with white for the dodging and black for the burning. So I will kind of like now take a soft brush. I'll change the opacity from 100 to 10 and change the flow to 10, and that way it spreads out nicely but softly. And I'll just take a white brush and just brush the bright areas, and just like that, really easy. And the one of the reasons why dodging and burning is super effective is because you pretty much play a digital makeup artist. Whenever they do contouring and all that kind of stuff, the makeup artist will kind of like create highlights in the cheek, nose area, the forehead, the bottom, and you're pretty much doing all of that. The same thing, but you're just doing it with Photoshop. You're just brightening areas that should be bright and darkening other areas. So like if I take my black brush now, I'll maybe darken this area around the chin area like that, maybe around this part, the forehead, and around here. And when it's all said and done, the image looks like this. So it looks subtle, but it's very effective. And I'll do the same even with the jacket, like darken these areas that are black and then brighten the areas that are white or lighter. And when it's all said and done, you can see a difference even in the jacket. It's very clear, and the image looks great. So once I've done the dodging and burning, then I will do the eye retouch, and I'm going to show you. I already done this with this image, so I'm just going to give you an idea what I do. And with the eye retouch, I try to stay very safe with this. You always have to be very careful with eyes. I really don't do much here except just brighten the bright areas again. Oh, I put that a little too close. And so brighten the bright areas, and then darken the darker areas around the eyes. And then the last thing I'll do, if you look at my eye details tool, I use what's called a high pass filter, which you can find right here if you're not familiar with it. And once I've added a high pass filter, I pretty much just sharpen the eyes, but very safely. Try not to overdo, and as I pointed out earlier, try to keep the edits as natural as possible. When I'm done with the eye retouch, I create a layer called details. And the details layer, I use that to really sharpen the clothes, for example, the hair, stuff like that, so that you bring out those details completely. So this is a details layer, and for this I use once again use a high pass, and you'll see here I have 3 different layers. One for the hair, so I will do the details on the hair. This is one I already done. If I take this out, you can see how the hair becomes softer, but if I add this layer, you can see it's sharper. And then I'll do the same with the clothes. If I turn this off, this actually it's already off, and then turn it back on, you can see how the details are brought back in the jacket. So take that off, turn on. So it's really simple, but once again, it makes the image really stand out. So the details is a very, very effective thing to use. And then once all that is done, then I do what's called color and toning. Now there are so many different ways to color and tone your images. I use really, really basic stuff. Now this is one that I'd already done, so I'm going to turn this on so you see the difference and you can see how much the image pops. So if I turn this off, turn this on, that's what it looks like. And what do I use? What's in this folder? Really simple stuff. If I open it, you'll see it's just a few curves and adjustments layers, and I'll turn each off and then kind of like bring them back you know, in, and you can see how the image changes with each addition. So the first thing I use is the levels layer. Turn that on, and the levels layer, this is where I do my highlights, my shadows, and you can see here I can see my level of shadows, the highlight levels, and so on. So I just use that to kind of make the image stand out, be a little like add some contrast and everything and pop out. And then I usually work on my midtones and the shadows and the highlights on 3 separate layers, and these are all with you know, just the color balance tool. So for example, if you look at my midtones here, this I'll add a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red to kind of give it an orange look. And then for my shadows, I will use a little bit of blue. So here I add blue and a little bit of cyan to the shadows so that, you know, this will only affect the shadowy areas, and you can see if you take that all the way what happens. And then for my highlights, I will use, actually I have my highlights up here. For my highlight, and I can bring this down, I will just use a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red because I want a warmer image. Now, the way I color is based on kind of like using the color wheel. You see, the color wheel is a really great way to color your images appropriately, because all the colors, you look at the opposite. So if I use blue in the shadows, you can see I have an orange look on the midtones of the highlights. I kind of like use opposites so that the image will be properly color graded. So that's just one of the techniques that I like to use. I learned that from some photographers. Other thing I'll add is a little bit of purple, a purple layer. I'll just add this to kind of like the shadows a bit, and I usually set this at a very low opacity because I don't want it to be so dominant like that. So it's just a little bit to make the image a little bit more interesting. And then I'll add a little bit of yellow to as a soft light layer, and basically this kind of like gives it a yellow contrast. So if you, for example, turn this on, you can see what that does, but I keep it at a very low opacity because I just want a little bit of it. And then I have my levels here again. I'm not sure why I have that over there. It's not really necessary. And then the last thing I use is my curves layer. And with this, I usually have kind of like just a gradual level to it to just once again add that final pop or that final contrast that really makes the image stand out. So I'll go really subtle on the shadows, a little subtle on the midtones, and subtle again on the highlights. And when it's all said and done, once again, this is the before, and the before is already a great image. And then add after, and add after just kind of makes it pop out. Once that's all said and done, I will add a kind of like what's called a sharpening layer. Basically, I sharpen the image completely, and for that I do use once this is done, I use a Smart Sharpening filter. And there are many different ways to sharpen images, but I like the Smart Sharpen. I think it's really, really good for just finalizing the image. So I'll add that right here. These are just levels I preset, so I'll just do OK. And once that's done, once again, this will just enhance the details, you know, on the image. And I'll forward this part. Okay, so now that's done. When you look at the image, you'll see the sharpness, that it's sharp. So if I turn this layer off and turn it back on, once again, it just sharpens the image subtly. And I'll label this sharpened. And then the last thing I'll do is create what's called a stamp of this image. And I will do the final part. Okay, and for the final part, I will just open up what's called Camera Raw. And here in Camera Raw, simple tool, sometimes I use this at the very beginning, but I will just add just the final touches to the image. So here I might like maybe just reduce the color a little bit, you know, the vibrance on the yellow or the red. So I might just change this just a little bit, maybe bring that down. I also might bring my blacks down a little bit to make the darker areas even darker. So just once again, very subtle. And I don't do too much here. If I want to make it, add a little bit more yellow. Oops, sorry. Or kind of like make it even warmer. I might increase the temperature just a little bit. So maybe to this. The value of 1 or 1 to 3, that's fine. And then, yeah, that's about it. Other times I'll do additional stuff, but it's not necessary this time around. And once that's completed, this is the image, and I will save it. So if we look at see what it started off from the beginning. This is what we were dealing with. That's prior to, actually this is the before any edits, and let's see, this is after the final edit. So before, oh sorry, so this is the before and the after. Before, after. So yeah, I'm glad that you were able to to tune in. And now that I have done it, if you guys can finally talk her into buying me my bunny, that would be really nice. So looking forward to sharing more videos where we kind of give you an idea of how we put together her pictures, especially when she collaborates with different brands. All right? Okay, talk to you guys later. Bye.